You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Every time I visit Africa, I see potential everywhere. Everything is already in place, but it just needs to keep up with whatever the rest of the world is doing. And that's where I see potential for Diaspora in particular. In some countries in Africa, if you invest $1 million, you need liquidity to get that out. Many countries don't have that laying around. You just have the country's currency. Right now, we're really in the phase of educating diasporas. And yes, of course, Africa has problems, but wherever you are now also has problems. You just got to adjust to it and get used to it.
Stay tuned as we bring you inspiring people who are unlocking Africa's economic potential. You're listening to the Unlocking Africa podcast with your host, Tessa Adamu.
Welcome to another episode of the Unlocking Africa podcast, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and strategies that are unlocking Africa's economic potential. Today's guest brings a grounded and commercially sharp perspective. It's Kanessa Muluneh, who is a serial entrepreneur and investor who exited her first company at just 21 and has spent over a decade building, scaling, and backing companies across Africa's traditional and digital sectors, from agriculture and manufacturing to technology and venture building. She is also the founder of Nyle Investment Group, a diaspora-focused investment vehicle designed to connect global capital with high-impact opportunities across the continent while remaining deeply hands-on with the businesses it backs. Kanessa, welcome to the Unlocking Africa podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We're here to talk about the great work that you're doing on the continent in terms of investment and diaspora-focused investment. So, as always, I like to get straight into the conversation. So to start us off, I was hoping you could give us a brief introduction into who Kanessa Muluneh is.
I can do that. Surprisingly, it's always the hardest question. Introducing yourself turns out to be quite hard sometimes, but I practiced, especially for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, my name is Kanessa. I was born in Ethiopia. And at the age of 3, my parents fled the country and we moved to the Netherlands. In that case, you can call me an immigrant. We are an immigrant family. I don't want to say I had a bad upbringing, but it was different from what we had back home. I enjoyed my youth, but I always knew that whatever we had going on, that I always felt like this is not it. There's more to it in life, I felt. And I think my parents did their best. I have to give them credit for that. They gave me everything I needed and everything I wanted, made sure that I had the best foundation. But obviously, you know, when you grow up in an immigrant household, you basically have 3 options in terms of future. Either you become a lawyer, doctor, or engineer.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know what an engineer was. I still don't know, honestly. I don't know what they exactly do. So I said, that's not an option. Lawyer, I don't like reading that much. So I eventually pursued the last option. I went to medical school and I hated it. I totally hated it. I hated, being a doctor. I just hate going to school. The whole structure, the whole system just didn't fit me, didn't fit my mentality or my lifestyle. So eventually I finished up to the bachelor degree because I wanted to make my parents proud. But I said, after this, I'm just going to do whatever makes me happy. And while I was in med school, my professor asked me, can you write a paper? And in order to write that paper, you need to find a problem, in that sense, that you can fix, that you can improve. And the problem had to be at my internship. So it was in a clinic, private clinic / hospital. And that's how my entrepreneurial journey started from that moment on, where he challenged me to think for myself.
Fantastic. I love that. So as you mentioned, the structure of traditional education didn't fit you, but you found your own path, which has led you to building, exiting, and investing in businesses across both traditional and digital sectors in Africa. So from your perspective, what do you believe actually unlocks economic value in Africa from that business perspective?
Well, there is a lot of value that I can mention in Africa. So first of all, we have to divide Africa. People talk about Africa, but it's a whole continent with so many different cultures and mindsets and people. You have North Africa, which a lot of people refer to as the Arab Africans. Then you have West Africa, who are very outgoing and they're very much out and about, whereas East Africans are completely different. And then you have Southern Africa, that is quite modern and considered one of the most developed African countries. Every time I visit Africa, I see potential everywhere. Everything is already there. Everything is kind of already in place, but it just needs improvement. That's it. It needs to improve and needs to keep up with whatever the rest of the world is doing. And that's where I see potential for Diaspora in particular. Like, we already carry the knowledge.
Yeah.
If you grow up outside in a world that is not necessarily yours, you learn a lot. You gain so much knowledge that, the African in Africa doesn't have access to. So it's really about coming back, see what's working, see what people are already using, and see if you can modernize that, or in other words, structure that. Because there's no structure. Structure lacks massively in Africa. So somebody needs to build systems.
So you touched on the potential on the continent, but few people, I believe, understand what is required in terms of executing and turning that potential into value. So what do you think separates those who succeed on the continent from those who struggle?
I think a lot of people don't understand what they're doing or what they're dealing with. If you Google something about Africa, I'm probably sure. Oh no, I'm not probably. I'm 100% sure that you will find something negative. It's probably bad PR out there that you're going to find. And everybody talks about Africa like, oh no, it's not reliable. It's not this. It's not. Listen, Africa needs the same things like the rest of the world. We still need the basic fundamentals, everything, we still need it. And it's also there. When I speak to African entrepreneurs or founders, they like to highlight the fact that their product is unique, never heard of, never seen before. And me as an investor feel like if nobody ever heard of it, then who's going to use it? You're going to waste a lot of time and money into convincing people to use your product. Why would I invest in that? Why not just choose something that is already there, that already exists? It's a proven concept, and just upgrade the service or offer more, or just in some cases, you don't even have to improve anything. Just they need competition in order for the industry to improve. I mean, in this case, why don't you just make it easy for yourself? And coming back to the fact that, where people tell you that Africa is unreliable, it's not. It's just there are no systems. So if you want to succeed, you just need to build something reliable. In other words, something predictable, which is a system. If people know how things work, Africans are no different than others.
Fantastic. So, if we take it from your experience, your work on the ground, what do you believe is required to build resilient businesses on the continent?
Patience. I must admit, Africa taught me a lot of patience. And also, I think you need to build that ability to just laugh things off and not get frustrated by certain things, because that's the best way to deal with things not being in order. If it makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It can be very frustrating sometimes, because if people don't understand it, they have a judgment. It's very hard to deal with African mentality sometimes, in a sense. So if you bring something new, they rather burn it and just badmouth it instead of asking questions on what it is or how it works, or how, if whatever helps them understand. So it's negative in a way. For a founder, it can be very disheartening, and it can really affect your motivation. So again, patience. You really need patience, and just start with that mentality that whatever happens, I'm going to push through. You really need to prove yourselves to Africans, because from that other perspective, they also went through a lot. A lot of scammers or a lot of failed concepts are out there. A lot of people quitting after a short period of time or without even trying. Patience is really key.
I agree. So you highlighted the need of patience, but if we look at your early days working on the continent, what were some of the early challenges that you faced?
So, starting from my personal challenge, that's definitely the fact that I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm Ethiopian. I was born in Ethiopia. I thought I would return and everything would click instantly.
Yeah.
Turns out I didn't feel like the Ethiopian in Ethiopia. I was different. And I, at some point, didn't feel home in, Holland, in Netherlands. And I didn't feel like an Ethiopian in Ethiopia. I was torn between two worlds. I think that's a typical challenge if you grow up as an immigrant, because you kind of lost your time in Ethiopia where, people that you knew prior to moving out, they also grew, but in a different direction. But you also grew, but in a completely different environment. So you're not that same person, and they are not the same person anymore. And then I didn't understand the culture. Even though I grew up as an Ethiopian with Ethiopian parents, I had no idea how free my parents were compared to how other kids grew up there. I was carefree compared to people who actually grew up inside the country. So I had to get to know how people talk. And what I mean by that is the way they conversate. For example, when somebody says, we'll see, or something simple, I'll see you at 2 p.m. Nobody's there at 2 p.m. So I had to understand that and had to go through it to understand it. So now you use the same language in order to do business. And that comes with a lot of dangers, because they also know that some people use that in their advantage.
So keeping on the theme of challenges, I know from my experience, one of the biggest challenges founders are listening or I've worked with face is scaling. So from your experience, what are some of the most common mistakes founders on the continent make when trying to scale, say, from being a local business to a regional player?
I think, honestly, that's a challenge for every founder worldwide. Scaling is always a challenge. But if you want like a little tip here, in Africa, you can grow if you let others grow as well. I know it's hard for many Africans because it's very much of a gatekeeping society in that sense. But sometimes if you allow others to grow with you, you grow much faster. And with that comes also a little challenge here, because by saying this, a lot of people assume you should just say yes to everything and just bribe your way to the top. For example, I want to scale to the next level. I have to sometimes allow someone else, in this case, let's say you, to grow as well. So whatever you want to achieve, make sure that you achieve it so I can use or get access to your community or network. Everything moves through people.
Yeah.
But scaling, I think it's a worldwide issue. I mean, I live in the Middle East right now. It's no different.
So I like what you said in terms of let others grow, because I guess when you're working on the continent, sometimes you're having to vertically integrate and work across the full supply chain or value chain. So it's important for everyone within that supply chain to move or progress together. So from an investor's perspective, what would you say are some of the signals that tell you that a business is truly ready to scale?
It's network, meaning the people in or around it. Well, first of all, who are the founders and the management? Who are they? Do they work well together? Is the dynamic okay and well? And this is all besides the numbers, of course. And then I look at who are they connected with? Like, are they connected with important people in the region? Are they connected to politics, which can be a pro or a con?
Yep.
Who are these people dealing with? We call it backdoor due diligence.
Interesting. In terms of scaling, we know that scaling requires capital. So I want to bring the conversation to the Diaspora capital, because that is a recurring theme on the podcast and also part of what you're doing at Nyle Investment Group to connect Diaspora capital with high impact African opportunities. So why is diaspora-led investment such a powerful lever for the economic growth on the continent?
So there's a spiritual side to it. I've been through that journey myself. I would recommend any diaspora to return at some point. And by returning, I don't mean move back, but go there with a purpose to reconnect. Don't plan anything, don't do anything, just go and find your way in that jungle. But, the jungle is your home or your whatever your roots are. Just go and pave your own path there. And I'm saying this because I don't think a lot of diasporas realize that a lot of inner issues that we're dealing with out there has to do with the fact that we don't understand ourselves or where we come from, who we are. We are framed by a different environment, which makes sense because that's what we are, where we grew up. But it's really important to reconnect back. That's from the spiritual side of it. Second part is like, once you find your inner peace, why would you go back? Why would you not find a way to come there often or contribute to a country that will be forever connected to you? And that's how it kind of started. I literally found my inner peace back when I started going back to Ethiopia. I started to understand why my parents make certain decisions. I started to understand who I am. I suddenly wanted to understand even more than what I know about the country, about my country. And it made life so much easier. I know the diaspora deal with a lot of issues out there. A lot of it are not talked about. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of, pain out there that they cope with in order to survive, because the only option you have or the only response you actually get from people back home is you are lucky and you should be grateful. I mean, I'm grateful. Doesn't mean I'm happy necessarily. So I do think happiness, if we ever want to find ourselves or happiness, we need to go back to that core, mostly back in our country.
I know from the conversations that I have, many diasporans want to engage with Africa, but also feel disconnected from real opportunities or what's happening on the ground. So what practical advice would you give in terms of investing with intention rather than emotion, which is sometimes what we see?
Yeah, so this is where it gets difficult. There's no one size fits all here. But what I did, I can tell you what I did. I went back 3 times, I think 3 times. The third time was the first time I thought, okay, now I'm going to try the investment thing. So here comes the whole thing that I mentioned earlier, where we gain knowledge outside and now we bring it back to Africa, in my case, Ethiopia. In Europe, we move through lawyers if we want to get something done, a contract done, or whatever. First time I spoke to a lawyer and I told him like, oh, I want to invest in this little company here, or I want to, it was, okay, instead of calling it investment, let's say I found a company and I wanted to help them with their marketing. And in order to, they couldn't afford my services. So they basically gave me shares for my services and I would help them become bigger and, a household name. I said, okay, I will do it. I will help you with that. I was already building my name in the continent anyway. So I kind of tried to tie that company to my name and just talk about it, blah, blah, blah. That was my plan. So I went to a lawyer there and he was like, why are you here? He literally said, why are you here? What do you want me to do? I said, what do you mean? Advice or draft a contract, whatever you guys do. And he explained to me that these kind of things generally happen. It's a verbal agreement. It's something you send your brother to or some family member or some cousin. It's not like an official thing. I was shocked. This is like a cultural shock to me. I was like, what do you mean? I cannot, do you want me to just gamble my time and money here? And he basically said yes. So yeah, for diasporas, it can be really like a culture shock. Your own culture can be a culture shock in many ways. And even if you draft contracts sometimes, diaspora does not understand that your contract can look beautiful and amazing, but there's no law that backs it up. I could go to a judge and claim like, oh, this is what we agreed on, but there's no law to fall back on. So sometimes laws are not even developed yet in that sense. So you have to really find your way, find whatever law is there and try to make it happen within that law and just hope that it goes well. That's how it started back then, a few years ago. Luckily, in those few years, a lot, like a lot, extremely lot, has improved. And I'm very proud of Africa for doing that. They really see and listen to what happens and how that goes. And they also realize how much they need the diaspora in order to grow. So I would suggest, if they really want to invest back home and they don't know where to start, to go to a lawyer with a track record and have conversations. Talk about it, think about it, then, ask for a consultation again, maybe speak to multiple lawyers, finance professionals, maybe. If you have questions, get it answered by the right people, not your friends or family.
Interesting. So you've shared your professional experience and how you work with clients and your hands-on approach. So for you, what does meaningful post-investment support actually look like?
So what I really like about my own firm is that we offer in-house marketing and finance help. And here, I just want to say I'm very lucky that I'm married to someone in the finance industry, and he is a tax accountant. So he moves money without triggering too much taxation. That's literally his job.
Okay.
I never knew how cool that was to have that in-house and to use that service for free until I started investing in Africa. Because besides the challenges that I just mentioned, once you start making money, the next challenge is already at your front door, because repatriation of funds is another challenge. It's not another, it's literally a problem on its own. People don't realize that in some countries in Africa, if you invest, let's say you make $1 million, you need liquidity to get that out. You need like $1 million cash to get that out. Many countries don't have that laying around. You just have the country's currency. But let's say I want to buy a house in Dubai. I need that $1 million, but it's not in the bank. It's just there on paper, but it's not there. The cash is not there. So how do you move money out? People sometimes don't realize or are not aware of this issue before they start investing in Africa. So my husband helps me with that. He's quite professional in money management, wherever it is. And he also offers the same service to the companies that we invest in. So before we even invest, we look at the whole financial structure. So let's say the investment is in Zimbabwe and they need $5 million. It doesn't mean that the whole $5 million will actually go to Zimbabwe, because we know that $5 million will never be able to get it out easily. Yeah. So we structure it through Mauritius, or can be through Dubai or Seychelles. And they just have access to the funds, but doesn't mean that it necessarily all goes to Zimbabwe. Because if they need to buy supplies or if they need to make investments in their company, generally they have to buy it from outside of Zimbabwe anyway. So the funds just directly go to the vendor or supplier.
So with that in mind, what value would you say you provide as an investor outside just capital?
Oh, and the other thing that we do is marketing. I am on top of every investment's marketing and PR sometimes.
Brilliant.
Because if I would just be like, here's the money and good luck, I don't think majority will actually succeed. I'm on top of their marketing because I can control the value of the company. With marketing, that's it's all the sales basically sometimes relies on my expertise there. So I bring in my own team. There have been cases where I let go the in-house marketing team and just brought my own team. With that, I controlled the value of the company as well.
I like that you mentioned marketing. I'm a very big believer in terms of the power of marketing and PR to position a company, especially on the continent, because I do believe we undervalue how important marketing and PR can be.
Oh, very much. Yeah, very much. But especially PR. I mean, I think I mentioned it earlier, but the PR in Africa is horrible. It's terrible. Like, I think if I would go to Google now and type in Africa, most probably the first article at the top is something negative.
Yes.
It's either gossip or bad PR.
Exactly. I guess with that in mind, in terms of perception and behavior which build confidence, what founder behaviors do you believe build confidence with investors? Specifically with you, what behaviors do you look for in a founder before you invest?
That is a good question. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this because I have trust issues when it comes to founders, but I do think certain things they do give me that belief in them. So I generally look at where they come from. So what kind of family? What is the family dynamic? How much do they really believe in themselves? Also, what have they invested in the company? How much have they done? And not just in capital, but how much, like, what kind of effort have you been putting in? I had some founders who were also living abroad, but they traveled back home every 2, 3, 4 months in order to help the family run the business. I mean, that shows actual effort. Within the country, it's very hard to pinpoint what it is, but it's a feeling. I generally go there, meet them. I have to have that feeling that they will manage the company well, but it's very hard to tell in terms of words.
Yes, I agree. So going back to what we discussed a few minutes ago about the importance of marketing and PR, I know that you've mentioned that ventures don't succeed on product alone, but also narrative, visibility and customer engagement are important. Why do you believe this is still a blind spot for so many African businesses?
Okay, so in order to answer this, I have to explain what I do. Because before I even invested in any company or did anything, I started building my name. I always believe in the power of building whatever you want to build. You can sell anything. You can sell anything. And I always believe that. I mean, you live in a house. That house is built with stones. Somebody sold that stone. Okay. Somebody told someone else, like, if you buy this stone from me, then you can build a house. And somebody pays for stones. So the silliest things, everything that you see, somebody sold it to someone. So it's marketed or it's sold in. There's a story behind it where people believed initially that they could actually use this product. So when I look at the African market, people, I don't know what it is, but entrepreneurs are very much focused on what others are doing or what they're not doing. It's not about like, okay, they don't see competition as something healthy. So you're the second person that I'm telling this, but I'm working on a vitamin product line for Black people simply because, the amount of vitamin D that we need is still too low. Some other vitamins, like hair supplements or skin supplements, we just need a different variation of it. So I said, okay, let's test this out. But I talk about it. And the first thing people tell me is like, aren't you scared somebody else is going to steal your idea? And I'm like, why would I be scared? Let them start so they can test the market for me. I'll just compete.
I like that.
Because I have to spend all this money in testing first. If somebody else wants to do it, go for it. And that also means that I don't always have to come up with a new idea here. I don't have to be leading. Let them lead and I'll just follow whatever works with them. I'll just copy and improve it. But people don't understand this mentality. They don't understand this, they don't understand when you're new that you have to compete and marketing is so difficult and it takes so much more time simply because they don't understand what marketing exactly is. So I'm still struggling with this one. Sometimes I also offer mentorships where I offer a consultation. This is not something paid or anything. It's just free because sometimes I really see potential in people and then they just don't understand that they have to market themselves. How will I know you're here if you don't even talk about it? There are clothing companies, higher end clothing stores, and I wasn't allowed to take a picture because what if somebody steals the design? And I'm like, first of all, the picture was just for myself so I can memorize it or remember it. And second of all, any bypasser can see your designs. What do you mean? Like, what is the problem? But they were so scared that someone would steal their design. Like it was a pattern on a dress. I was surprised by it. First of all, if I want to copy it, I will copy it. There's no stopping me. Second of all, the whole purpose of promoting is so people see it.
100%.
You're gatekeeping your own products.
I've always said we live in an age now where ideas don't mean much. It's the execution, which is the critical part. You can find an idea just from going on ChatGPT, looking on the internet. It's the execution where you actually make the difference.
Yes, it is. And, same thing that you just meant, the AI thing. And this already started back in the days during the whole blockchain NFT crypto thing, when that became a thing, that was the first moment I realized, like, oh, wow, like Africa is about to be equal in a sense that from now on, Africa has access to the same resources as the rest of the world because of internet. But sometimes people there still have a hard time seeing that. And AI actually, let's say ChatGPT, gives us the same information in Africa as here, wherever we are. So we have access to the same resources in that sense. Although I must say, the other day somebody pitched an idea which I found brilliant. I don't invest in tech, but he pitched this idea and it really made me consider investing in tech. He said, you feed AI information, right?
Yes.
That information that we're getting from ChatGPT, somebody fed that information to AI or whatever what it's called. You provided, you inserted, I don't know. But they said there aren't data centers in Africa that provide the African information. Like majority of the languages aren't even there, are not available because the information is not fed to AI. So I was like, oh my God, like why don't we have our own data center where we just feed AI the proper information about Africa? Because AI probably also knows the random negative info that the West is spreading. That's the only thing AI probably knows right now.
Very true, very true. So I think from what we've discussed, it seems like a mindset or mind shift change is required. So what skills or mindset do you believe today's African founders need to build future-ready companies, businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think there are a lot of mindset shifts that we need to make. But what I'm about to say sounds very simple, but it's very important. They really should stop caring about what others think. Like, they're going to think a lot of you. That's the whole thing. Whether you do it or not, they're already thinking something of you. So you might as well do something and try. They're scared of failing. Why? The whole purpose of growth is, you fail and you try again. That is the whole purpose of learning. And it's easier said than done, because the moment you stop caring about what others think, believe it or not, they will embrace that. And at some point, they will even like you more for it, just like anywhere in the world, by the way. Africans are so self-aware. It's insane.
I agree. So as Africa's entrepreneurial and investment ecosystem matures, from the work that you're doing, what type of business models do you believe will drive the next phase of growth, say, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Agriculture.
Fantastic.
And I'm saying this because of what the rest of the world is going through. Like, it's so unstable and so unpredictable. My husband calls it recession-proof investments. We always will need to eat. We'll always need raw materials or food, whether it's food or cotton, anything that grows. Agriculture, I predict that's the next big thing, or at least that's what I would advise everyone to invest in. Mining, any metal could be an interesting one, and not just gold or silver, aluminium, copper, any metal. But then again, I also think, if you want to think smaller, a simple plumbing company. Honestly, like, everybody is moving into tech, but we still need our plumbers and we still need our construction, like the builders. We still need that.
Yeah, I mean, infrastructure is key. That's one thing you can't leapfrog or miss out. That vital foundation that actually keeps the economy, keeps communities moving forward and sustainable as well. With what you mentioned, what role do you believe Nyle will play in the next phase of that growth on the continent?
Right now, we're really in the phase of educating diasporas. anybody out there, with roots leading back to Africa, I really want to make them aware that whatever battle you're fighting, it's not worth it. Honestly, if I'm being straight, it's not worth it. If you're fighting for whatever it is, you might as well fight in your home country. And yes, of course, Africa has problems, but wherever you are now also has problems. You just got adjusted to it and got used to it.
Very true.
But it's not worth it to constantly fight those mental health battles. It's not worth it. Just, return to some capacity, like clear your head and start over. And yes, we have food. Yes, we have clothes. Yes, we have internet. No worries. Africa is not that far behind. So I would also advise not to believe the narrative in that. That is the phase Nyle is in right now. And surprisingly, we get a lot of interest from African Americans.
Oh, great.
It's becoming, not a hype, but it's really becoming a thing now where they want to rediscover themselves and their ancestors' background, which makes it highly interesting, honestly.
Quote of the week.
As people, we often have quotes, mantras, African proverbs, or affirmations that keep us going when times are challenging or when times are good. Do you have one that you can share with us today?
I have a quote that I really loved, but I totally forgot how the saying goes. I understand the meaning of it, but I forgot the saying. But it goes in a way like, it comes down to the fact that you need to treat the future, meaning the kids of today, well, because they eventually will be the ones taking care of your future. The way the saying goes was beautiful. Like, the village needs to provide warmth to the child, otherwise they'll burn the village down. In that line, anyway. And it stuck with me. That's why I think it's also important to invest in Africa, because the future is there. The majority is our youngsters. We really have to provide them a better future, because otherwise, I don't think it will end well for Africa.
That is a very important note to end on. Thank you, Kanessa. That was a very powerful conversation. I think what really stood out for me is your emphasis on the execution, the narrative, and also intentional capital, because they are not just nice to haves, but also core drivers of sustainable growth on the continent. And it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and looking forward to seeing how everything develops and shapes out for Nyle.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you to everyone who has listened and stayed tuned to the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, or tell a friend about it. You can also rate, review us in Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast. Thank you, and see you next week for the Unlocking Africa podcast.